Hello guys, my name is Gabriel Behart and you are watching How I Survived My Seizures, Part 1. And this is the story about how I lived. So as everyone knows, I was born September 23rd of 2004 and in Flint, Michigan. So the story of my seizures began when I was born. So technically, how this happened was they basically, my parents, I was born, and then I think a year after I was born, I started having seizures, which is called epilepsy. And then, after that, I suffered through a lot because, that. And I remember when I was in school, it's a true story. I did pretend to jump out of a window because, in Super Mario Bros. They have that thing that they do where they jump up, and I didn't get hurt or anything, but I pretended to jump out of a window, which I did, and so there were points where I get kicked out of school because of my condition, and my parents were going through a rough time. They were like, why is this guy devastated? And so then, my parents were like, why am I devastated for my own child? So then what happened was, in 2009 or 10, I had my first surgery, and my parents were not always like that serious when it came for my surgery because they work so hard to do all of this. So then, during that time, I felt like that moment shed a light on my day, and at some point, my seizures started happening again, and that's when I started having that first surgery of my brain. And what they did, which upsets everyone, is that they took a part of my brain out, which is called a frontal lobectomy, which is where they take the frontal lobe part out of my brain. And I have one left, but they took one of them out. The one that was controlling the seizures, we took out. That was the first one. The second one's still on me. Yeah. So after they took that out, my seizures got worse at some point, and I think it was like, oh my gosh, I think it was 3 years after my first surgery, I had my second, which is my robot surgery, is what I call it actually. And what they did was, this is so terrifying, but we didn't expect the surgery to be as planned and well thought out as we thought, because there were so many side effects to my medications and how much I was taking, blah blah blah. We didn't know all of that. So then when I went back for my second surgery, it was a lot different, and we didn't have like a whole lot. To me, my life was kind of tragic because I didn't have like a whole lot going on, and like it felt like a tragic story because it is. But yeah, my seizures were the things that took control of me, and I wasn't ready. But we didn't plan for all this to happen. It occurred to my parents that something was off and that it needed to be done. And I wasn't too sure if I was going to live or die because the reason for like the seizures are in control of me, and I'm not control of them. So at some point, I wasn't responsive enough to actually withstand them. And we didn't expect it to be like that serious. But yeah, during that time it was awful. Just because like at some point they coded me in an elevator, which was like devastating, or like it was intoxicating, because they basically, this is a true story, they basically wanted to test my brain on something, and it wasn't meant to be. And eventually I got out of that elevator, and man, it was crazy. And at some point I wasn't really happy either, because during the operation of my robot, they put me through, I think, anesthesia. During like the first 5 or 15 minutes I was in anesthesia, the doctors were not in the room, which I had no idea what happened. And it took them probably like a few minutes just to get back to an hour. Man, my parents were mad at this stage. They were like, why are the doctors not in the room? And sure enough, they were not. So like they weren't keeping track of how much of the drugs were in my system, because at this stage I'm well aware of the fact that I didn't want to end up like Michael Jackson when he died. So then I had to figure out like what I was going to do and how I was going to live this one off. The moment they put that robot in me was the moment they saved my life. And from that moment on, I was born into a new genetic mutation. So it made it easy for me to live, because I wasn't ready to have this happen. And during that moment, I lived with the robot for quite a while. It's been 13 years in 2026 that I've had this robot in me for my seizures. The last seizure that I remember I had was like in 2015. So, this documentary, by the time you're watching this, it will already be, let's go back into the future. So I'm going to make this video go way into the future. So don't watch this until, what was it called? 2036. No, don't watch this until like 2033. Then you'll really understand how important my life is. So for those watching, don't watch this until 2033. Because that's the year it's 30. No, that's my 20th anniversary of my robot. So don't watch it until 2033. And then you'll know the reason why I have it. Okay? Alright. So to get on with it now, so after that, the doctors, oh my gosh, I wanted to sue them. Because basically, after they left the room, like, I was like, what am I gonna do with my life after this? Like, there's no way. Like, I literally could have died just by not having my robot in me, and without it, I could have died anyway, because I wasn't sure if my robot was the cause of all this drama, or it was the fact that my frontal lobe was. But we took that out before, and the seizures were still going on, and I had a teacher who was absolutely annoying. I think it was during like 2010. But she was like, Gabe's the worst student in my class, and I don't think he's gonna be good at anything he did. Well, guess what? She's wrong. I did graduate high school and I did do all the things. She just doesn't understand it because I've worked so hard to do everything. So if you're watching, remember I'm better than you. And there is basically no one worse than her. Not in like a million years. So I would have sued the meanest teacher on the planet if I had to. But I can't, because that's not how it works. I'm giving her a free hall pass for that. But yeah, so during the time when I had my robot, I've had it for like the entire years that I've had it. My guess is that once this robot in me has slowly faded away or whatever, like once the battery's gone, which it's probably almost at this point, I'll have to replace it and get a new one, because you can't keep the same battery in you forever. If that happens, then you basically die and it runs out of juice. So that's kind of the reason why I'm making this documentary, because during 2033, if I do get my robot replaced, I want you guys to watch this, and I want you guys to reflect on how important this documentary really is, because if I didn't have my robot in me, I would have died. So that's why I'm talking about it in this documentary. So just listen and respect it. So then after that, I had my robot in me. I was fine. And during this time, which was like 2014 or 13, I didn't know how my robot was going to go. And if they do put me in anesthesia again, and if I don't live, just know that I love you fans so much. And there's nothing on this earth that will stop me from loving you, including the people I like more. Just know that. I'm not saying that I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna die. I'm just making this documentary because it's important to notify the 20 years that I've had this robot in me is the 20 years that I survived with it. But no, this robot means a lot to me, and after 13 years of having it, I was finally able to make a documentary like this one. Okay. This is the last part of the documentary, and then I'm going to close up shop. So, in 2015, many years later, I had another seizure, which a lot of people do not know. I touched the stove, I think when I was like 11 or 10 and a half, and I fell to the floor. I think it was near the glass window to the backyard. Yes. The sliding glass door to the backyard. Yes. Fell right next to it. There was a fan covering the bottom of the floor, and hit my head, fell over, had a seizure, and yeah. But I recovered quickly, and I was able to do what I loved. But I woke up on a couch. Actually, this is a true story. When I had it, I woke up on a couch, and it really stunned me, because during that time, like, I had no idea how my life was going to turn out or what would happen. But I'm 21 years old now. So when I turn 22, you may not even fully recognize me anymore, because I've aged so much throughout the entire year. And if you do recognize me, then I guess you're happy, because, I care so much and so little about the people who like me and the people who don't. So if you watch this documentary, think of me as a person you would watch on the internet. Don't think of me as a person you hate. Okay? Remember those words. And don't watch this until 2033, okay? Which is 20th anniversary of the Big 2-0, okay? Bye. Thanks for watching the documentary. See you guys later.